Hello, and welcome. It's not Friday, but I have a guest, someone who I've been trying to get on for.
It's been a long. You've been trying to get me on for so long, and I'm a nightmare. I am a nightmare, but we're here. We're doing it.
We're here. Yeah, I don't think we've talked before. I don't think we've been on any streams together.
No, we haven't.
Yeah. So yeah, here we go. So who have we in the chat? Salty Popcorns first. How you doing?
How you doing, Joey?
Are you working? What's going on? We have Joy. How you doing? And we have Andy in the house.
Evening all. How are we?
So, my first question is always, please introduce yourself and tell us everything about yourself.
I shall, but you're going to ask me lots of questions, so I'll tell you all about myself in the questions. But yeah, my name's Chris. Chris's Beer Reviews. My channel's been going about a year and 4 months, year and 3 months.
172 days.
Yeah, so yeah, love reviewing beer. The reason I got into craft beer, you might ask a question later on, so I'll hold on to that. But yeah, I just love reviewing craft beers, love drinking beers and decent beers. And it took me a while to set up a channel. And in the end, I was speaking to Jonathan Brown from Northern and Southern Beer Reviews, and he kind of gave me the little nudge to get out there and do it. So yeah, I've been going just over a year now. I think I'm on 450 something subscribers, which just blows me away. So yeah, I'm out there. I'm enjoying it. Enjoy doing lives as well. I need to do more lives, but I'm quite restricted with time. But lives are definitely something I want to do more of. So yeah, that's me. I'm Chris. Chris's Beer Reviews.
Yeah. So your stats are up on the chat. Your 246 subs. Let me see. 36,000 views, nearly 37. You have an average of 78 views per day.
Wow. They're quite impressive.
I think. For that,
I've never looked at the numbers like that. It's just, to see 460 odd subscribers, almost 37,000 views, 78 views per day. That's a number I've not ever looked at. That's quite incredible, really, isn't it? And yeah, it's nice. Yeah, I like that. Thank you.
No problem. Now, I'm sure some of the lives can kind of skew them views a bit. People drop in for a couple of minutes and the count as a view, I think.
Yeah.
Another guest and another person watching. Thanks for watching. We have Baz in the house as well. How you doing?
Evening, Baz, and evening, Brett. How are you both?
I think Baz is drinking the Stellas at the PD.
Yeah. That's very nice of you, Salty. Because he's calm and informative. I do try to be calm, although I did a beer review earlier today of Donkey Stone's so-called lager, and that was dreadful, and I struggled to keep my calm with that one.
Yeah, I suppose we should tell everyone what we're drinking. It's going to be a beer. I couldn't find the bottle.
Absolutely. I'm currently drinking Hobgoblin IPA, which is quite nice, 5%. It's quite fruity, nice and malty. It's not a bad IPA, that. I know it's the Whitewood Brewery, which is owned by Marsden's now, isn't it? But that is quite a decent IPA, a nice sessionable IPA, that one.
I'm drinking right Sullivan's Pale Ale. It's 2021, so it's getting a bit old, but still really nice, good malt to it. So Scott has a question. What's your view on bottle shops?
Have you ever heard my rant on bottle shops, Thomas?
No, you have to enlighten me.
I can't stand the term bottle shops. I think it's poncy. I think it's made by hipster beer people. To me, there's no such thing as a bottle shop. There's beer shops, is about the limit I go to, but they're off licenses in my mind. They might sell specialist beers, but they still have an off license. They still have to have a license. They're off licenses. It drives me fucking nuts, the term bottle shop. I just find it really poncy. I came from a council estate in London, and everything was an off license. And then, over the last few years, I've been hearing these terms, bottle shops. They're not bloody bottle shops. Beer shops, I can live with beer shop. If they sell beer only, It's a beer shop, not a bottle shop. There's more cans in beer shops than there are bottles. It just really winds me up, Thomas, the term bottle shop. And Scott knows it, which is why he's asked it. And it gets me every time. It really does make me boil. I don't like it. I can't understand the term bottle shop. It's just my honest thoughts and feelings on it.
What if someone can't stand the term off license then? What if you have a business and you want to call it a bottle shop?
But they're wrong. Call it a beer shop. If you want to open a shop selling beer, call it a beer shop, because you've got to have a license to sell beer off premises or on premises. It's an off license. It's as simple as that. They're licensed premises to sell beer. Call it a beer shop. If all you sell is beer, it's a beer shop. I can live with that. It's not a bottle shop. Why call it a bottle shop when almost 80% of what you sell is in a can? It's rubbish.
And we got trolls in Erie. I usually don't get them in. Yeah, I suppose we'll get on to the next is why and when you started. I think you kind of answered, but we'll go through like the questions. Why? Why would you step through all this hassle of creating videos for YouTube?
So why did I get started doing YouTube? Is that what you're... Yeah, so I've kind of addressed that before on my own channel, because I used to be, when I first started my channel up, I was known as the Beer Crony, and then I changed it to Chris's Beer Reviews. And the reason I was known as the Beer Crony is because at that point I was on a bit of a journey, and I've got Crohn's disease, which is bowel disease. It affects lots of other areas of your body as well, but predominantly your intestines and your stomach and your whole digestive system. And I had to accept, because years ago, you know, only going back sort of 3-4 years ago, I was a big macro lager drinker. And my wife always used to tell me that those macro lagers were upsetting my Crohn's disease, and I wouldn't have it. I would just disagree with it. And I was always bloated. Stomach was never good the next day. And in the end, I thought perhaps my wife Rachel is right, and perhaps I'll leave them alone. And I'll come off the macro type lagers. I was a Stella drinker mainly. But I didn't want to give up beer because I enjoy beer. And I thought, well, I can't give up beer. And that's what got me into the journey of craft beer. So I started looking at other beers, that's when I really started researching other beers compared to macro. And I suppose you could say the likes of Brewdog might have kind of turned my eye a bit when I was looking at different beers a few years back. And that's how I got into craft beers. And I found that the craft beers just didn't upset my Crohn's disease as much as macro lagers did. And so that's why I became, because then I started watching lots and lots of beer reviews, and I thought I'm going to have a go at doing the beer reviews. And that's why I called myself the Beer Crony originally on my channel. But then for me, reviewing the craft beers and drinking craft beers, you know, my kind of journey with my illness had kind of finished in that sense. And for me, Beer Crony just didn't fit what I wanted to do anymore, which was just review beers, taste good beers. It had nothing to do anymore with the Crohn's disease journey, if that makes sense. So then that's why I changed my name to my channel to Chris's Beer Reviews. And it's now nothing really to do with the health issues. It's just about enjoying good beer and reviewing good beer. I do have another YouTube channel, which is all about my journey of Crohn's disease, life with the stoma. That channel is called Sydney Stoma. And that channel I set up just to help people that are newly diagnosed with Crohn's, people that are new to having a stoma. So I have got 2 channels, but that other one is far from my beer channel. It's all about helping people with bowel disease and having a stoma. And I never mention my beer review channel on that one. I just keep that solely for helping people. And it's been really good for people. I've had some amazing comments on all the videos that I've done on there that have helped people. And that's what it's all about. You know, I'm about helping people. And I set that channel up because of the horrendous health issues I went through. I just wanted to help others. And that's why I set the other channel up. In fact, that channel was older than my beer review channel. But it's all about helping people. And I think we all can help somebody. We can't help everybody, but we can certainly all help somebody. And that's what that channel is all about. So yeah, that's how I got into beer reviewing, really. So the positive of having bowel disease is it got me to look at craft beers. So positive in everything.
Okay. And who were you watching before you started making your own videos?
Oh, most of all the big ones, really. Northern Southerner beer reviews. I think he was the first person I ever watched on a beer review video. He was the first person that I started putting comments in on his videos. And then it just spirals, doesn't it? And I think I went from Northern Southerner to Dean's Beer Reviews, Scott and Wonders World, which wasn't called Scott and Wonders World then, Paul's Beer Reviews. They were the main ones I used to watch. And of course, Barry, I can't forget Barry. Bad from All the Beard, No Idea. So yeah, it was generally those ones that I used to watch the most. I did watch some of Beer Hooligans, Beer Dad, some of his, Rocker's Beer Reviews, the odd one or two of his. But my mainstay was Scott, Dean, and Paul, really, and Northern Southerner were my main ones that I used to watch. And then once I got into reviewing, I obviously then started seeing more like Raggy and etc. and so on. But yeah, I mainly stuck to about 4 originally. And Northern Southerner Beer Reviews, he was the one that gave me the push to crack on and do it. And then Dean's Beer Reviews, the legend that Dean is, he got me on quite early. I'll tell you who else, that's a lie, I've missed one, was Big Sip Beer Reviews. He contacted me really early doors when I set up my channel. I think I barely had 20 subscribers. And he contacted me quite early and reached out and etc. And I spoke to him a lot. So he was really cool. Unfortunately, he's put his channel on hold for a while, but hopefully he'll be back. But yeah, from right early doors, he reached out as well, Big Sip, which was really nice. But yeah, I mainly had about 4 or 5 that I watched on a regular basis.
It's hard to watch everyone because I try to get through a lot of channels and watch videos, and it's just there's too many. You forget about someone for a couple of weeks or a month even, and you kind of manage stuff. Yeah, I try to cut back a little bit on some people. I suppose worst and best comment on your channel, on this channel, we'll say.
The worst comments on my videos. I think I've had two that I would say are the worst, but I find them generally quite funny. I reviewed what's the name of the brewery? I've got their glass somewhere. Just looking at their glass. Brasserie de Chouffe. They did a cherry Belgian beer, and I reviewed that, and I liked it. But I said it was a cherry beer, and I liked it, and I said it was really sweet, bordering on sickly sweet. And a guy put in the comments that a very strange type of comment. I can't remember what he said. I've got no recourse, whatever that means, and that I need to give up reviewing beers. I've got no taste in beer, and I've got no idea how to review them. So that was probably one of the worst. And there was another one that's since been deleted. I don't know why the guy's deleted it. It was on my John Smith's Smooth beer review. And he basically told me I was a beer snob. But his comment's gone. I don't know why he's deleted it. I don't delete anyone's comment. Well, maybe his was. But yeah, I've only had 2. They're the only 2 most kind of like shittiest comments, but they're not that bad. But best comments, but to me, every comment's a good comment. If people are interacting with me, I quite enjoy that. And at the moment, because my channel's 450 odd subscribers, I can reply to every single comment, and I try my hardest to reply to every single comment. So every comment to me is a bonus, and I'll always try and reply to it. I think there's a few that I haven't replied to, just not because I don't want to. The way my YouTube app works is I see a comment, I go and click on it, and it kind of vanishes and I can't find it again. But yeah, I generally reply to every comment. Every comment's a good comment in my mind.
Yeah, I think you have to go into the YouTube, the studio app to comment really properly. Yeah. I think sometimes that can be hard enough.
Yeah.
How you doing, Bramhind? So what was there got to be one comment that you maybe clicked on during the day if you're looking at your phone or whenever comments come up? Is there any one comment you can pick out? Got to be one comment that you.
What is it? There's a best or worst or both?
Yeah, best.
Oh, I can't pick out a best because generally most comments on my channel are pretty good. What I like is I like that people pick up, and I'm not saying other beer reviewers aren't, because I know they are, but I do pick up and really enjoy when people say, I love watching your videos because you tell it how it is and you're honest, because that's the only way I operate in life, is by being honest. And sometimes I think if if I haven't got anything nice to say, I won't always say it. But I'll always be honest. I mean, certainly when it comes to beer reviews, I'll always be honest. And I like that. I like it when people pick up on that and think, who don't know me, but say, yeah, I can tell you're a genuine guy. You say it how it is, and you're always honest. So I'll say they're the comments I enjoy the most.
Okay. Getting away from YouTube, we'll go on to family, if you want to talk about what kind of family you come from or where you come from.
Yeah, cool. So I'm married to Rachel. She's been on a couple of my videos, and she will sometimes be in the background on my lives, chopping off as she does, which is quite amusing. I've got 2 kids. My son is 17, Nathan. My daughter called Leah. She's coming up for 12. I've got a sister. She doesn't live too far away from me. My sister's 2 years older than me. But I grew up in London. I spent the first 21 years of my life in London, in a place called Burnt-Oak, not far from Wembley. People haven't heard of Burnt-Oak. Think of Wembley. It's not too far from Wembley. And now I live out in a village in Bedfordshire. And my family are the world. My wife and my kids are my absolute world. They are the best thing that's ever happened to me, my wife and my kids. They mean a lot to me. So yeah, that's my family.
Jack, I don't know what you mean by pair. That's very important that you're not tonight. Yeah, I suppose first beer then, when you were trying beer, what was your first beer?
Are we talking going back to when I was a
very first beer that you had a sip of?
Cool. Now, I don't remember what the beer was, but I remember as a kid, and I'm talking young, I think I was about 8, had a family do at my house. Well, I didn't. Obviously, my mum had a family do at my house. And I don't remember what the beer was, but I do remember going around finishing off cans of beer that were kind of sitting around when no one was looking. I'd pick them up and drink them. And my mum said that I was a little bit drunk. I just kept running in and out the back door in some strange manner. So that was probably my first time of drinking beer. I would say the first beer that I could probably remember going out and buying as a teen was probably, I don't know if you ever had them where you are, but in the UK, Heineken used to be in 330ml cans. And I do remember drinking those at a young age, Heineken in a 330ml can. And as a beer reviewer and a beer drinker now, I can't stand 330ml cans. But as a kid, I do remember Heineken being in 330ml cans. Do remember drinking that. So that could well have been probably one of the first beers as a young kid that I managed to acquire, was Heineken in a 330ml can.
Yeah, I think 330 kind of get people introduction to get them low enough for supermarkets, and maybe people will pick up at a reasonable price to sample beers.
Yeah.
I see there was a beer here because of the minimum price units. It's called Dutch Gold. They've now moved from 500ml to 440.
Yeah.
4 for €5 to keep under the minimum price units.
Yeah. Yeah, I can also remember, I grew up in a council estate in London. I can certainly remember seeing cans of Special Brew in people's houses as a kid. Special Brew back in the sort of early 80s was quite a big beer for some people in council houses. I'm certainly not knocking council houses. I came from one myself, but I do remember Special Brew being around a lot. Not in my house, but in others.
What is Special Brew? I don't know.
Special Brew is it's a lager by Carlsberg. And it used to be strong. I mean, it still is on the grand scheme of things. Special Brew was, like a park bench beer, tramp juice, as people call them. It used to be like 9% ABV, a super strong lager, relatively cheap. But they have dropped the ABV. It's 7.5% nowadays. But yeah, Special Brew was their alcoholic's choice back in the 80s.
So park bench kind of thing.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, I just would say thanks to Scott for sharing out in his community tab.
Thanks, Scott.
What's one type of beer that you would eliminate then?
What's one type of beer that I would eliminate?
Yeah, one style.
Oh, what style of beer?
Yeah, completely eliminate.
Cool, shit, that's a question. One beer style that I would eliminate. Oh.
A lot of people go for sours.
Yeah, see, I love sours.
Yeah, I like sours too.
I'm a big fan of sours. Could I eliminate a style of beer? Do you know, if I could eliminate, I'm going to base it on ABV. If I could eliminate beers, there's some beers, certainly in England, that are in the likes of Tesco's, Morrison's, Sainsbury's, are these 4 packs of beer that you can buy for like 99p that are about 2% ABV and are just a waste of space and a waste of time. And I can't see a huge benefit to them. So if I could eliminate anything, I'd say any beer under 3% ABV is what I'd eliminate. A specific style, I'd struggle, but anything under 3%, no, it'd have to go.
And I tell you where that style of beer came from.
Go on.
That's called table beer, and back around the 1800s, the water wasn't suitable for drinking, so everyone would drink beer, even children, and you would have this low ABV beer, so children could drink it. So the water wasn't safe to drink, so that's why there were so many breweries.
Yeah, and you're right. That's very true. And I read up on that in terms of Schenkerler beers out of Germany that do the smoked lagers, and they produce one actually that is about 2.1% a smoked lager. And when I read into that, you're absolutely right. It is all about that the beer was safer to drink than water because that alcohol did kill off some bacteria. So that Schenkerler at 2.1% is a good beer. So yeah, you're right. That's a fair point.
Yeah, I think that's where they come from. But nowadays we have clean drinking water. What's your go-to beer style?
My go-to beer style as a fridge filler, go-to beer style is probably going to be just a fairly kind of decent 5% IPA, or almost like this Hobgoblin IPA. It's fruity, it's malty. It's 5%. It's easy to drink. I would say those types of IPAs are my go-to style, just for simple drinking. Another beer that I do drink as a fridge filler that does surprise people because it is a macro beer is Tetley's Number 4. I don't know if that's over where you are, but Tetley's Number 4 for a macro brewery. I find it quite pleasant and quite an easy drinking fridge filler. So that and any type of easy drinking IPA are my general go-to styles.
Yeah, it wouldn't be over here a bit, like you wouldn't see it everywhere.
All right.
Favorite brewery, if you have one?
Yeah, I do have one at the moment. It was my brewery of the year last year, and it's New Bristol Brewery. They're a small brewery. They don't particularly have a core range. Once they've brewed a batch of beer, once that one's gone, they brew another style. I think the only ones they've kind of stuck to have been the Cinder Toffee Stouts. There's a core beer. But I kind of picked up on New Bristol Brewery sort of tail end of last year, and their beers have absolutely blown me away. They've been absolutely fantastic. So at the moment, New Bristol Brewery are definitely my favourite brewery.
Okay. Move on from beer. Favorite? What kind of music do you listen to?
Oh my God, my music taste makes my kids laugh because it's just so varied. I love the 80s. I was born in 75. I'm a child of the 80s, so I love 80s music. Some early 90s. So I love 80s pop music. I don't mind pop music in general. Indie music. Rock music. I even like some classical music. My music taste is really, really varied, and it depends on what mood I'm in as to what music I will listen to. Have I got a specific style that I'll always play? I haven't. I'm just quite open to lots of different, even country. There's country music that I like. There's folk music that I like. I generally just like music. Music is quite a good place for me. Sometimes if I just want some time on my own, just chilling out, it's just me and music, or me and a beer, and beer reviews is also a nice time out for me to take me away from reality. So music means quite a lot to me. Music's helped me a lot over the years. I have suffered with mental health issues, and music's always been a good help. And I found that lots of different varieties of music have helped me as well. So I haven't got a particular style, just like music. If it sounds good, I listen to it. My son's 17. Some of the music he listens to, I just think is absolute drivel. But then every now and then he'll play something that's drum and bass wise or hip hop wise, and I just find it quite catchy and do enjoy it. So quite varied on the music front, Thomas. I can listen to all sorts, to be honest. There isn't a particular music style that I don't like. Maybe thrash metal, that really hardcore kind of thrash metal music is something I'm not so keen on. But other than that, I'm generally quite good with most music.
What was your first concert you went to for music?
The first concert that I went to was, can't remember the year, it would have been in the 90s. And not many people would know of this band. They're a band, and you might not have heard of them either. A band called Carter USM. They were an indie band. Used to play at Brixton Academy a lot. Brixton Academy was a fantastic venue. So they were the first band I ever saw at a proper music venue rather than a band playing in a pub. Was Carter USM. Still listen to them now occasionally. The first big concert I went to was U2 at the old Wembley Stadium. Was the first massive one I went to. No, that's a lie. That's actually a lie. The first big one I went to was at Earls Court, and I went with Rachel, who's my wife, and her boyfriend at the time to see Whitney Houston at Earls Court. And it was dreadful concert. It was in Whitney Houston's life when she was on the coke, having a real bad time in life. And her performance at that concert was shocking. It was so bad, I actually fell asleep. In Earls Court listening to her because it was so bad. I went to sleep. So yeah, first small venue, first real band was Carter USM. Big venue was Whitney Houston.
Do you remember your favorite? What's your favorite concert you've ever went to?
Favorite? Cool, that's tricky. I've been to Glastonbury, and I saw Oasis at Glastonbury, and that was incredible. The atmosphere at that was just absolutely incredible. So that was pretty good. In fact, that was really good, actually. Just the whole atmosphere at Glastonbury as a whole for the whole weekend was superb. So that was pretty good. But I'd say single venue, Eminem at Milton Keynes Bowl, that was pretty good as well. But I'm always going to go back to Carter USM at Brixton Academy, a small venue with a quality band. The atmosphere is incredible. So I'd probably say my most favourite concerts were them at Brixton Academy, Carter USM. They were brilliant.
What year did you go to Glastonbury? What year was it? 96, 97? And it was all
It must have been around 96. It must have been when Oasis played there. I'm sure it was around 96. Can't remember the exact year. But yeah, it must have been around that sort of time, 96, that I saw them at Glastonbury. I think it's the only time they've done Glastonbury, isn't it? I don't know if they've done it more than once. But yeah, it was a fantastic thing to be part of.
They won't be doing it anymore anyhow.
I'd love to go back to Glastonbury. I would love to go again. It was just such an experience that whole weekend. And it is on my bucket list to go back and do Glastonbury again. Absolutely. It was fantastic. It's an amazing place.
Yeah, I'd love to go to Glastonbury sometime.
Yeah, if the weather's good, it's amazing.
I think going back to it might ruin your previous experience. So
I don't know, because sometimes that does happen, doesn't it? I don't know. There's only one way to find out, isn't there? Is to go. And I definitely want to go again. I really do. And if it's not as good, then so be it. But I've still got that burning desire to go again.
Your first CD or record or tape?
Oh, fuck. Oh, God. You see, where I grew up in London, we used to have literally it was about a 45-second walk from me was a Woolworths, and Woolworths used to sell music, so I was quite often in there buying singles on tape, because you used to be able to buy a single song on a tape. First one I ever bought. But you also used to be able to buy good old-fashioned vinyl. It was probably a Now album. Was probably the first one I ever bought. I used to have Now 3, and I can't find Now 3, but I used to have a copy of Now 3. I don't know what Now albums are on now. They're well over the hundreds, aren't they? I can't remember. T'Pau. I know I bought T'Pau, China in Your Hand, on tape as a single. But I used to buy so many, I can't recall what my first was. Might have been Duran Duran. Duran Duran were one of my most favourite bands in the 80s and still are now. So it might well have been Duran Duran as well. But on CD, I think Pet Shop Boys were one of the first, or Erasure were one of the first CDs I ever bought.
Alan Mead has a question. What's in the PD at the moment, would you?
Absolutely nothing, Alan. I need to turn it off. There's a keg in there, but it's empty. It did have the triple Carmelite in there. I need to order a new keg. I need to order a couple of kegs. It's still in there and it's turned on, wasting electricity. So it's empty at the moment, but I will be replenishing that sometime soon.
Yeah, sorry if I missed any comments. I'll just flick through them. Next question is always an interesting one. Are you happy?
Oh, am I happy? That's a good question, though, that is, to be honest, Thomas. Am I happy? In general, yeah, I am. I'm happy because I'm lucky to be alive. I've almost died twice because of my illnesses, so that makes me happy to be alive. I love my wife and kids. They're my absolute world, so they make me happy. I've got some great friends around me which make me happy. My work's cool. That's fine. Sometimes I do get a bit frustrated and a little bit bored with going to work, coming home, getting up, going to work. So I try and, where I can, make the most of my days off, try and enjoy them as much as I can. My wife sometimes works opposite shifts to me. So sometimes we miss each other. So if she's at work and I'm off, then I've got to go and do things like the shopping and take my daughter to school, do the housework, and when we're opposite, she does the same. So sometimes I get a bit bored and a bit fed up with that. But overall, yeah, I am happy. I'm very lucky. I'm very lucky that I've got my wife and my kids and my job and my friends that I've got around me. You know, I've got a roof over my head. So yeah, I am. I am happy, and I do enjoy my life. But yeah, sometimes I just get a little bit fed up of the treadmill.
The constant same things happening kind of gets you down.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, but overall, yeah, I enjoy life overall. But you know, we all have our ups and downs, and we've just got to keep going. Sometimes we don't feel like it, but yeah, we just have to keep going, don't we? And you know, life can be difficult at times, but we're here. We've just got to get on with it and make the most of it, haven't we, really?
Yeah. You wake up happy or sad?
Most days, do I wake up happy or sad? No, all right. So there are a lot of days that I kind of wake up sad, but I have suffered for years with mental health. And I'm very open about that. And I still find it frustrating in this day and age that people still don't believe mental health problems exist. That I find really frustrating. So some days I do wake up sad, and when I look at my life, people say, well, we shouldn't be sad. You know, you've got a roof over your head, you've got a wife and kids, you've got a job, and what's there to be sad about? But that's not what depression and mental health's about. So yeah, some days I do wake up sad, just because of the way my mental health works. So yeah, it's a variety. You know, there are some days when I wake up and I'm absolutely buzzing and I can't wait to crack on with the day. But there's certainly other days where I think I'm just going to stay in bed all day. And sometimes there's nothing wrong with doing that. If you're staying in bed all day, day after day after day, then that's an issue. But there's nothing wrong with having a day in bed, a little sad day in bed every now and then. So yeah, there's a bit of a variety on both of those, I'd say.
Okay. What gives you joy in your life?
What gives me joy in my life?
Other than your family and your wife and all that.
Yeah, that was going to be my answer. Other than my family, my friends give me a lot of joy. I don't have a huge network of friends, but the ones I've got around me are solid people, solid golden people that are honest and supportive. And they're the friends that have been with me for years, and we're talking over 20 years, that have stuck by me. When I started having my health problems, there was a lot of people that dropped me because of my health problems, and that includes family. I had some family members that dropped me because of my health problems. So yeah, those people that have stuck by me give me a lot of joy. My friends, without a doubt. And beer reviewing really does give me a lot of happiness, because I can get lost in doing a beer review, and I can get lost in doing a live. And I love doing lives. I just don't do enough of them. But I get lost in it. I get lost in that live. I get lost in that whole moment. I get lost in the comments. And that gives me a lot of joy and a lot of happiness. And it might sound odd to yourself and to maybe some others. It might make sense. But if I've had a live and I've had loads of people in and loads of interaction, I come off of that, I'm buzzing. And the next day I'm in a really good mood. And the day after that, I'm in a really good mood, because I've just escaped from everything, and it just makes me super happy. So yeah, my friends, definitely, outside of my family, certainly I love. They help me enjoy life, and beer reviewing and meeting people in the beer review community has made me happy, and I enjoy that as well. And I know it's taken ages for me to commit to doing this live review, but I wanted to do it, but just time scale. So it's just doing things like this make me happy. And on other people's channels, etc. That's what makes me happy. So overall, I do enjoy life, but I've always got that depressive mental health side. That's always there. I'm not on any meds anymore, because I don't really need them. I've learned to control it and manage it. But yeah, it's still there. It'll always be there. But I find coping mechanisms to deal with it.
Yeah, that's very good, I think. And I suppose you have to be conscious that you're drinking alcohol that might make you a bit depressed.
Yeah, and that is something I have to give consideration to. But most of the time when I'm drinking alcohol, I'm normally doing a beer review, or I'm on a live, or I'm with friends. So it's always in a happy time that I'm drinking alcohol. I rarely, let's just say, for example, my son's staying at his girlfriend's, my wife's working nights, and my daughter's in bed. I won't sit at home and drink beer, because then I'm drinking beer on my own. So I don't do it. So I generally only drink beer when it's for beer reviews, or going out with friends, or we've got people around, or I'm at someone else's house. So I'm generally only really drinking beer in happy situations. But you're right, alcohol is a massive depressant. So we do have to be careful how we're using it.
Can I ask you next what makes you really sad?
What makes me sad?
Yeah.
There's lots of things that annoy me. What makes me really sad? People's attitudes towards vulnerabilities, disabilities, that I find quite sad. People that won't accept people for who they are, I find that quite sad. People that target people for having an illness or a disability, that really pisses me off. And that type of thing does make me sad, because I just think actually those people that are making fun of people, or trolling someone, or taking the piss out of somebody because they've got an illness or a disability or whatever, they're just generally people that are a bit uneducated, or probably very unhappy in their own lives, and feel that taking the piss out of someone else makes them feel better. I find that quite sad, and those people are probably quite sad themselves. Yeah. So that's what I find. I find society sad in that sense, that we're in 2022, and you can love who you like, who you want, whatever you want. You can be whatever you want, and that's fine. We need to move on from targeting people for having illnesses or disabilities or being transgender or whatever it may be, being gay or whatever, doesn't matter. As long as people love each other and people are happy, what does it matter? So I find it sad when people target them, but I'd say the majority of those people that are targeting people are sad themselves, is how I see it. But they're the things that kind of upset me the most.
Yeah, definitely. If you're putting out that kind of hate, you can easily sprout love or disrespect or just leave people alone. If you don't like them, just avoid them.
Absolutely.
Thanks for Hop House joining. Let's go through some of the comments. Yeah, next one is the most important person in your life.
Oh, the most important person in my life.
No pets allowed, so it has to be.
Yeah, it won't be any pets. It will be a human. Obviously, my kids mean absolutely the world to me. But the most important person in my life, without detracting from my kids, because my kids are my world, is Rachel. Is my wife. She is the most important person in the world to me. We've been together. Oh my God, we've been coming up with 19 years married this year. We've been together well over 20 years, and she's been through a lot with me. Where there's times where I've said to Rachel, just leave me, go and be happy with somebody else. And she's been through a lot with me, and she's stuck by me through some real dark times, some horrendous times. She's put up with a lot from a couple of people in my family that I don't talk to anymore in my family. She put up with a lot from them. And when I first started becoming ill, Rachel always believed me when others didn't. Some people were saying my illness was in my head. I was doing it to myself. And Rachel always stuck by me, always believed me. And, she's still here now, obviously. And she's helped me get through a lot. And I've helped her as well. It's, two ways. But yeah, by far, I absolutely, I've got no issues with admitting how much I love my wife and adore my wife. She is by far the most important person in my world, is Rachel.
Well, she certainly sounds amazing, and yeah, I can only say that that sounds like true love.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, what's the meaning of life?
God, there's a question. What is the meaning of life? See, now, I've often wondered that over the years, and I've often wondered why we're all really here. Why are we here? What's the purpose of us all being here? And what I come down to actually answering that question of what is the meaning of life, I think we're all here to help each other and support somebody and help someone. And if you can just make a little difference in somebody's life, then that's the meaning of life for me. It is helping people. I love helping people. I love helping people that are vulnerable and helping them get the help they need, or protecting them from someone that could be harming them or whatever. For me, that's the meaning of life, is to look after people, help people where we can. And if you help someone, they'll help you. And that's, there's so much crap that goes on in this world. There's so much nonsense that goes on. So I'm just think, well, I've been through a lot myself, so I can help someone. And maybe, I'm not a religious person in any shape or form, and I don't knock religion, but I'm not religious myself. But I think maybe I was given my illness for a reason. And if that means I can help people with the same illness and help them find a bit of happiness, or find another way of dealing with their condition, which my other channel clearly does with the comments I've had on it, then for me, that's the meaning of life. We can all help someone. And if that makes someone happy, then that's good with me. That's my most simplest form of the meaning of life.
Yeah, that sounds pretty good. Hop House has a question for you. If you had a bar, what would you? If you had a bar, what would you call it?
I've got an answer.
Can you see it on screen there from Hop House? Because it's not coming up for me.
Yeah, I can see that. If I had a bar, I would call it the Open Arms. Is what I would call my bar. Is the Open Arms. I just think that's a great name for a pub, because a pub should be about chat. A pub should be about socialising. should be about having fun. So the open arms, because there's so many pubs in the UK where it's a word and then arms, and the open arms just seems spot on for me. That's what I would call my bar, the open arms.
For me, it's the 9 Stones. Yeah, it's after a local mountain.
Cool.
When's the last time you cried? Besides a couple of seconds before you started this stream.
When was the last time I cried? I would say it was about 3 weeks ago. 3 weeks ago. Something went on that was quite upsetting, quite sad. And I was sitting having dinner with the wife and kids, and it just kept being in my head the whole time. And I've got no issues with, as a man, saying that I cry. There's nothing wrong with crying, and there's still this perception in this bloody day and age that men shouldn't cry, men shouldn't show emotion. That's rubbish. You know, showing emotion and crying releases feelings. It releases emotion. It's a natural thing to do, and it helps you overcome things. So yeah, I'd say it's about 3 weeks ago. Something quite sad happened, and I cried. Got no issues of saying that whatsoever. It's a good release to cry. Helps release things. There's no harm in it, and no man should ever feel ashamed of crying. Got to move on from that.
Did you have a happy childhood, and what was school like to do?
Happy childhood, yes and no. Had its ups and downs. School I hated. I absolutely hated school. Tom Stocks, I'll always be open and honest, mate. That's how I am. I like to be open. School I hated. I absolutely hated school. I must have been my mum's worst nightmare, because I came from a single parent family. My mum used to go out and work her socks off, to fund or pay for us to even eat, and I hated school. It wasn't that I was necessarily a naughty kid. I just hated it. It just wasn't for me. And I used to bunk off a lot, which is what I mean by I must have been my mum's worst nightmare, because the school were always ringing my mum, asking where I was. I just hated it. I just hated school. I did get bullied, but that's not the main reason why I hated school. I mainly got bullied because I came from a single parent family, which was quite rare kind of in the 80s, moving into the 90s. I just hated the place. I just hated school with a passion. So no, I didn't enjoy school. I just liked being out. When I was, as a child, I loved being out. I was always out. I was never in the house. I was always out on my BMX, a rally burner, always out on my bike. That was my happy place as a kid, was just being out. And like I say, I grew up in London. We used to ride all over London on our BMXs, and that was an amazing time. I loved that. But school, I hated it with a passion. And my son doesn't like school, and it's very difficult for me to. Well, my son's not at school anymore. He's now at college. But when he was at school, and he'd say to me, "I hate school," it was very difficult for me to kind of say to him, "No, it's a great place to be." Because so many people say, "Oh, school's the best years of your life." It fucking wasn't. No. And my son went through the same. So when he was saying I hate school and I don't want to go, I found it really hard to say to him, no, you've got to keep going. And I give him his due. He went every day. He never took a day off. But I found that difficult with him when he used to tell me how much he hated school, because I know what it's like. So yeah, school I hated. Childhood, growing up in London, it had some amazing moments. There were some great times growing up in London.
Did you go to university after school, or?
No, no, I didn't. I left school with about the whole of one GCSE because I hated it. So I never used to really go. All I ever wanted to do was earn money. So if I bunked off school, I didn't just go and just wander around the streets. I used to go and earn money, any way I could legally. I'd go and earn money. I'd work in shops. I'd go to the back of the rear yards of shops in London and sweep all their rear yards and pick up all their rubbish for a quid or whatever. So no, I left school with very little in the way of qualifications. But literally 2 GCSEs is all I came out of school with, and they weren't good grades. It wasn't until I was in my 20s that I went back into full-time education and got a higher national diploma in business and marketing. And I only really went back into education in my 20s was to prove that I did have a brain, that I was actually all right. I was actually good at some things. So I went back into education and did a higher national diploma. But no, I never went to university. I don't have a degree. And for me, I don't need one.
Okay. I suppose next thing, if we're going to talk about school, we have to talk about bullying.
Yeah.
Any experience, or do you see it happening, or?
Yeah, I certainly went through a period of bullying at school. I mean, so many kids did, and I still don't think schools address bullying properly. Even in this day and age, schools try and deny bullying exists when it does. So yeah, certainly as a child, I definitely did, because I came from, like I say, I came from a single parent family background, which was absolutely the right thing. My mother was absolutely right to kick my dad out. So yeah, I got bullied a lot for that, for being a child in a single parent family. Yet when I looked at some families that still had their mum or dad, they were really abusive relationships. And I used to look at my friends and think, you're taking the piss out of me for coming from a single parent family, but your mum and dad are toxic. They're always being abusive. They're always screaming at each other. They're always shouting at each other. And that I found a bit strange. I got bullied from being from a single parent family, yet when I look at their parents, they should have been separated. But in the 80s, certainly the early 80s, parents splitting up was quite a rare thing. So yeah, I did get bullied for that. I definitely did get bullied for that. But we got through it. We get through it.
I suppose most, wives at that time would have been single income.
Yeah.
So they would have had no money if the man was kicked out, or.
Yeah.
For Tom Stock's vinyl, I'm not sure about it. I've never had vinyl. I don't know what it sounds like. I'm not sure.
It's an interesting question, Tom, because it is, isn't it, vinyl? It is certainly making a comeback. I certainly remember my time with vinyl records as a kid. If you got a tiny little bit of dust on the needle, it'd make crackling sounds, etc. But I've got no issues with it. I mean, I haven't bought vinyl for years. I haven't had vinyl for years.
Is it nostalgia or something like that? People they have money now, they can buy a record player, they can buy vinyl, and then you have the hipster kind of thing, I suppose, too.
Yeah, but I've got no issues with vinyl coming back. If people want to buy vinyl and that's what they like, I'm all with that. Got no issues with vinyl. I used to like the big vinyl covers, especially the big double opening vinyl covers. I've still got a couple that I've kept to this day, and one of them is Pink Floyd, The Wall album, which is 2 vinyls in this lovely big cover that opens up. I've still got that, which I've always kept. So yeah, I've got no real issues with vinyl making a comeback. Happy for that to come back.
I think it's a year waiting list or something if you want a big vinyl press.
Really?
There's so many little of the machines left. That's all. You have to wait 2 years or something like that.
All right, fair enough. Yeah. I'm just going to drop down into my fridge to get another beer.
No problem. So what's everyone drinking at home if you're drinking on a school night or work night or whatever sort of night?
In fact, I'm just going to quickly nip to the loo. I'll be back in 1 minute.
No problem. So thanks for everyone who is in the chat. I'm sorry if I missed your comments. I'm sorry I'm only flicking through them. So I'd like to say thanks to Chris so far. He's been really honest. Thanks to everyone who's commented. What milk is it? Skim milk? Full fat milk? What kind of milk are you drinking, Chris? Or not Chris, Alan? Yeah, which kind of milk are you drinking on? Hopefully not on the full fat milk this time of night. Yeah, so what's everyone else plans for the rest of the week? Any plans for the weekend? Yeah, I'm just trying to line up the next question. This always takes me ages. Oh, Aaron, no, that's not good. You should be on the super milk or some of them high protein milks I thought you'd be on. No, Simon still hasn't got back to me. He hasn't answered my email. And no, I don't know who I have next. So tomorrow, loads of people will be getting messages on Instagram and wherever, seeing if they want to come on. Yeah, so next question, if I can remember it. Home brewing, have you ever tried it, or what do you think of it?
I've never tried it. Is it something I'll ever do? I'd like to. I like the idea of it. I think it comes down to time and space, because you need some space really to do home brewing. I've had some people's home brews. Some of them I've been impressed with, some I haven't. But there's the same with any beer, isn't it? But I'd give it a go if I ever get the time. If I ever get my dream, which is to move to Norfolk by the sea with a lovely big house and a nice big outbuilding, I'll give it a go. So if that dream happens, I will give it a go.
So when you win the lotto or inheritance.
Yeah, absolutely.
Next one is a funny question because you don't homebrew. Is your favorite smell?
My favorite smell?
Yeah.
My favorite smell? Do you know, it's going to sound really soppy, is one of my most favorite smell is when I can smell a certain perfume that my wife wears. If I walk into a room and I can smell that, it just makes me feel happy. And if I smell anybody else wearing that same perfume, that also makes me happy, because it just reminds me of the most important person in the world to me, being my wife. So it is one of her perfumes, is one of my most favorite smells.
Okay. Have you been arrested?
Yes, I have. It was when I was in my very early teens. It wasn't our fault. Everyone says that when they get arrested, but it actually wasn't. We'd left a leisure centre in London, just me and my friend, and these three lads came up to us and just started giving us grief. And they started throwing punches. We threw punches back and ended up getting the better of them, and then we ran off. And there was a police station just over the road, and they ran in there and said that me and my friend had beaten the three of them up. And the police drove up the road, found us and arrested us. No charges were ever brought, and it got dropped. So, but my mum was livid. No matter what event, or no matter how much I told my mum the truth about what happened, didn't matter. You know, the police had knocked on her door, and that was a big no-no. So yeah, I've been arrested as a kid. Yeah.
We have a question. Have you been to Oktoberfest from the chat?
I have been to an Oktoberfest in the UK. Now I need to go to a proper one in Germany. The one I went to in the UK was in a town called Hemel Hempstead, and they had this massive, like, circus tent type size thing, and that was called Oktoberfest. And obviously it was in October. The beer was crap, and they ran out of beer. We had to pay. You had to buy a ticket to go, and obviously pay for beer in the venue. They ran out of beer after about an hour and a half. It was shocking, but the beer was awful anyway. But yeah, an Oktoberfest beer festival that ran out of beer. Dreadful.
Yeah. Next is, what is your philosophy in life? I think you kind of mentioned that before, but we'll get into it.
Yeah, the philosophy on life is very similar to what I said about the meaning of life, really. And it's just about enjoying what you've got, enjoying the people around you, and making the most out of what you've got. You know, we can't all be millionaires. Money isn't always the answer to everything. It's just about making the most of what you've got and enjoying the people that you've got around you, and helping people. Just helping somebody makes a difference. And that's generally my philosophy, really. Is very similar to what I said about the meaning of life. Just enjoy what you've got. Our time is short. And just help people, enjoy people.
You said you weren't religious, but what is God's plan for you?
I'd say God's plan for me, I think is what I'm doing at the moment. You know, certainly with my other YouTube channel, is helping people. That's what I'm about, and I think that's what His plan is. Whether, you know, you could argue is God really a he in this day and age? Who knows? I'm not religious. But yeah, I'd say that was his plan, was to give me this illness that has caused me a lot of problems, but it's changed my mind. My illness has really changed my outlook on life and my outlook on people. So maybe that was his plan. Maybe that's what it was all about.
What inspires you?
Oh, what inspires me? God, what inspires me? That's an interesting question. That's difficult. What inspires me? Oh, success stories inspire me. And what I mean by success stories, I mean people that have come from nothing. My mother is a good example of that. She had kids young. She was separated young. Lived in a council house, and she went on to achieve amazing things in life. And now owns properties in Europe and in the UK. Those types of stories inspire me. People that have come from absolutely nothing, from real hard times, that have gone on to achieve, and it just shows that it can be done. People that put in lots of hard work and lots of effort inspire me. People that get things handed to them on a plate, I don't find that inspiring. If that's what they get, then fair play to them. Got no issues with that. But people that work hard, people that work their absolute nuts off, that have started with nothing and achieved good things in life, or people that just, give to the world, give to society, that, people that throughout my illnesses and the times I've been in hospital, there's been, in the UK, we have in hospitals nurses, but almost below nurses, there's what they call healthcare assistants that are on absolute minimum wage. And some of those people that come in and do that job day in, day out, doing the nastiest of jobs, they're inspiring, and they keep doing it, and they keep going, and they go into work every day for that sort of money, dealing with patients, poo and wee and everything else. They're inspiring. People that, are cleaners in a building, I find them inspiring because they're working, they're trying, they're getting on with life. So yeah, that I find inspiring. And I'm the sort of person that if I walk through a building at work or wherever it may be, I say hello to everybody. There's no class in my life. I say hello to everyone. You can be a road sweeper, I will say hello to you, because they're all doing something. So for me, I find that inspiring. So yeah, anyone that's just working their arse off, trying to pay their bills, put food on their table, look after their family, are inspiring to me. That's what inspires me.
Yeah. Sorry to hear. Sorry, Scott. Wanda has COVID.
Oh, sorry to
hopefully recover and get better soon.
Much love, Wanda.
Yeah. So, what makes you laugh the most? Then I think that's the next question, isn't it?
What makes me laugh? My friends. My friends are very good at making me laugh. A good sense of humour makes me laugh. Even reviewing crap beer makes me laugh. I might review crap beer and absolutely slate it, and I come away from that review laughing at how bad it is. Comedy makes me laugh. Only Fools and Horses. I love watching Only Fools and Horses. That still makes me laugh. My kids make me laugh. My wife makes me laugh. I try and laugh as much as I can. So there's many things that make me laugh. People make me laugh.
I think so. Baz has a good point there.
Absolutely, Baz.
Next one is there anything you're embarrassed about you looked up on the internet?
What would be the thing that you would be most ashamed of looking at on the internet? What that I've looked at on the internet that I've been embarrassed about?
Personally.
Oh, I don't know. The way I look at the internet, I think, is there anything that I watch on the internet that I wouldn't show my wife? And generally there isn't. I watch all sorts of weird crap on the internet.
What weird crap have you watched?
I do watch some weird stuff on the internet. I tell you what, it's not necessarily weird. I don't know why I watched it. I used to watch a lot of things about surgery because I've had so many operations. I think it was in 6 years I had 25 operations. So I used to watch the operations that I've had on the internet because everything's on YouTube. So I used to type in the operations I've had, and there'd always be someone filming it, and I'd watch it, and that led on to watching all sorts. So one that cropped up the other day was a video that I'm not ashamed of it, but it did make me chuckle, and people would really question me as to why I watched it. I watched how a man that wants to become a woman, how they do that surgery of turning their penis into a vagina. I watched that. It was hard to watch because it makes you cross your legs. But yeah, I can imagine if some people looked at my search history and think, what the bloody hell are you watching that for? But yeah, I watch strange things. So that one I think would probably cause people to ask some questions.
A few, yeah. So don't throw your wife that one. She might have more questions.
But I did tell her I watched it. And even my wife was like, what the bloody hell did you watch that for?
Have you overcome any bad habits?
Yeah, I suppose I have overcome some bad habits. I know I've got a vape in my hand, but I haven't smoked a cigarette in over 7 years. So I've overcome that bad habit. I know there's nicotine in a vape, but it's nowhere near as bad as a cigarette. So yeah, I'd say that's probably the worst habit. And now I can't stand the smell of cigarettes. I think it revolts me. So I'd probably say that's the worst bad habit I've had was smoking, but it's been over 7 years since I've had a cigarette.
Well done. What's weird about you?
Oh, what's weird about me? What is weird about me? God, that's a question. If I was looking at myself from the outside, what would be weird about me? I'd say the fact that I like helping people, that's not weird. I like helping people. I like doing things for people. Yet sometimes I really can't stand being with people. And sometimes I find social gatherings really hard work. I find it very difficult sometimes to walk into a social gathering that I've been invited to, and I feel really, really awkward about being there. So I'd say that would probably be weird about me, considering how much I like helping people and want to help people. I want everybody else to kind of help someone, yet sometimes I just cannot. I feel really uncomfortable in social situations.
That's why I'm drinking O'Sullivan's Red Ale for Alan.
So yeah, I'd go with that.
Okay.
Changing hands when I do a beer review, Baz, you're right. I do that a lot. That's weird about me. I do that a lot.
Yeah, I think that's more of you're trying to think what you're going to say, and you're trying to... how many times a day do you check yourself in a mirror?
How many times do I check myself a day in the mirror? Because I've always had a body image, because whilst I wasn't diagnosed with my illnesses until I was in my 30s, I always knew I had something wrong with my digestive system from when I was a child, and no one believed me. So I was always conscious of my body, and being conscious of my body, I was always very slim. Because of having Crohn's disease, that always used to make me very slim as well. So, and people always used to call me skinny, and I don't like the word skinny, because in this day and age, if you call someone skinny, apparently that's acceptable. But if you call someone fat, then that's not acceptable. But why is calling someone skinny acceptable? So because I was always called skinny, I was always conscious of my body. So I didn't very often look at myself in the mirror. I did when I had hair, because I used to do my hair. So I'd have to look in the mirror to do my hair. But even to this day, I don't look at myself much in the mirror. When I go into my bathroom in the morning and brush my teeth, there's a mirror right in front of me. I don't look at it. I've been looking in the mirror recently because I've had an eye infection and I need to put drops in it. But yeah, I generally don't look at myself in the mirror. since I've had a stoma and a colostomy, I've probably looked at myself more than I ever had, because I sometimes photograph it for social media to say that there's nothing wrong with having a colostomy. But generally I don't. I generally don't look at myself in the mirror. Sometimes my wife says to me, have you looked at the way you're dressed? Go and look in the mirror. and then I might. But yeah, generally I don't check myself in the mirror that often. Quite rare, actually.
Okay. What's the last song you sung to yourself?
The last song that I sung to myself.
Yeah.
The last song that I sung to myself was This Evening. And back in the 80s, there was a great song. Oh my God, why has it just gone out of my head? There's just been a remix of it by, it used to be, oh, fucking hell. I also have problems with memory. All the medication I've been on has affected my brain, and things can just disappear out of my head. So I'm going to just quickly Google it, even though I only listened to it half an hour ago.
No problem. I just need that medication that everything just goes out of my head.
Yeah.
I can't hold the information.
No, I can't. And that's the problem, is holding it, is hanging on to that information. It's called Down Under, wasn't it? I come from a land down under. And there's been a remix of that. I sung that today. I'm going to get the exact word. That's it. It was called Men at Work. I come from a land down under, which was a massive song in the 80s. And it's just been remixed by someone called Lude, whoever Lude is. And they've kind of put a drum and bass vibe to it. And I think it's fantastic. Again, my music's varied. So I come from a land down under. The latest release of it is a drum and bass. And I was dancing around the kitchen singing that as I was cooking dinner this evening. So yeah, that's what I sung. And that was only just not long before we were on live together. I was singing that. I love singing. I love singing in my kitchen. I love cooking. And if I'm cooking, I've got to have a beer, I've got to have music on, and I'm singing along. And that's another thing that makes me absolutely happy.
So what's the last song you sung to someone else then?
Just going to comment on Irish craft beer guy, Alan, Westlife Flying Without Wings. That's a great song. I love a bit of Westlife. The last song that I sung to somebody else. Well, me and my wife Rachel, we haven't done it for a while. We used to have SingStar parties, which are basically karaoke parties. And in our house, we've got laser lights, we've got smoke machines. And we would quite often, our favourite song was a Snow Patrol song, and we'd sing that together. And whilst we're singing that together, we'd be looking at each other. So I'd probably go with that, or a Killers song. We used to sing that together quite often. So yeah, I'd say one of the Killers songs or Snow Patrol. We used to sing those a lot to each other.
Okay. Do you remember your first proper paycheck or your?
Yeah, I do. Oh my God, yeah. When I first started working full time, I think I was 16 because I left school as soon as I could, and I was working for Iceland Frozen Foods, which used to be called B Jams. But there was B Jam in Iceland, and Iceland took over B Jam, and I joined as it was B Jam, and then got just taken over by Iceland. And my first paycheck, and used to get paid in a little brown envelope in those days. And it used to have written on the front how many hours you had worked, etc., and how much tax you had paid. And my first paycheck, my first hourly rate was like £1.97 an hour. And I think my first paycheck, I think it was something like 97 quid, which, you know, back then it was okay. But yeah, hourly rate, £1.97. Can you imagine that now? Earning £1.97 an hour. So yeah, I do remember that. And I ended up working for Iceland for many years, but yeah, terrible now when you look at it.
Good company to work for?
They were all right, Iceland, to be fair. Never had any real issues with them. They were okay.
Okay. Have you ever eaten any exotic meats? You worked in Iceland, so you must have eaten.
Exotic meats? Yeah, I've had kangaroo. I've had kangaroo meat. I've had crocodile meat. Buffalo. It's not massively exotic, but yeah, I'd probably say kangaroo and crocodile, probably the most exotic things I've ever eaten.
Okay. Always difficult question. How much money do you have in your bank account right now?
Cool, that's a question. How much money do I have in my bank account right now?
I will go with current account. We won't go with savings accounts or anything like that.
In my actual current account right now,
Yeah.
probably about $1,500, I would say.
Okay. Let's see, next question. Are you planning to make any changes in your near future?
Am I planning on making any changes to my life in the near future? I wouldn't say in the near future. We are looking at moving house probably by the end of the year, so I'll probably say that. But our biggest plan is to move to near the sea, but that's not going to be for a few years yet. So I'd say my biggest plan this year is we are planning on moving house at some point this year.
Okay. Most treasured memory.
My most treasured memory is easy. Apart from the birth of my two kids, my son was born by an emergency cesarean. That wasn't a pleasant experience. My daughter was born by planned cesarean, which was amazing. But my most treasured experience, absolute most treasured experience, was my wedding day. I loved my wedding day. That was just, always has been, one of the best days of my life, my wedding day. It was beautiful, sunny day. It was scorchingly hot in a lovely, lovely environment. And it was just amazing, an absolutely amazing day. I loved it. And I often think I wish I could go back and do it again. So my most treasured moment is definitely marrying Rachel, and our wedding day was immense, absolutely immense. I loved it, still love it.
To go to the other opposite end, your worst memory, most terrible memory.
Oh, blimey. What's your worst terrible memory? I think that some of the worst memories have been lying on a hospital bed, pretty much dying through my health problems, and for some of the pain that I was in. Some of the pain I've gone through has been barbaric due to my health issues. I'd definitely say there was a time when I went into hospital and I was in absolute agony, and they said I needed to go on a ward. And they sent me up to the ward, but the ward weren't ready for me. And they gave me this chair to sit on, and I couldn't sit because of the nature of my Crohn's disease and where all the pain was. And I ended up just laying on the floor for about 7 hours in excruciating agony. And they wouldn't even give me any painkillers. Because I wasn't on a bed on a ward, they wouldn't diagnose me pain relief. And that just seemed alien to me. I was like, well, I'm still in the hospital, so give me the bloody pain relief. But because I wasn't registered in a bed on a ward, they wouldn't give me it. And
we can't give it to you.
Absolutely.
I've been there many times.
Yeah, that was by far probably one of the worst memories in my life, without far.
What do you want to be when you were smaller?
Well, do you know, I never really had any desires or goals when I was small as to what job I wanted to do as a kid. As a kid, you always have those fantasy ideas, didn't you, of being a racing driver or whatever. But yeah, I never had, as a kid, I never had those goals, that type of aim to be anything. And that might sound a bit sad, because a lot of kids do, don't they? They have that desire to want to be something. But as a kid, I never had that desire to want to be anything. There was nothing that I don't know. It's a difficult question, but I just, as a kid, with growing up on a council estate in London to, you know, at what the time was a poor parent, I just didn't have any desires. There was nothing that switched me on, nothing that I had dreams, but they were always dreams that were never going to happen. So no, I didn't really have any as a kid.
More survival than.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it was more about that. It was more about just getting through to the next day and the next day, and just surviving and getting through it. And so, there was never a job that I thought I want to be that job. It just wasn't there for me as a kid.
Was there any sport then when you were kind of a bit younger or now?
Yeah, there was. Sports-wise, I was always a very, very good long-distance runner. And I used to really enjoy long-distance running. I also enjoyed rugby a lot as a kid. And I loved playing rugby. I loved my long-distance running. With the rugby, I was always very slim and I stopped growing. So I used to get flattened in rugby, so I stopped playing it. But long distance running was something I was very, very good at. And I was running at what we call county level. But the problem I had with that was I had no real support. No one was really saying, you're really good at this, Chris. Keep pursuing it, keep pursuing it, keep doing it. We'll support you, we'll help you. And I was doing all these long distance events and always doing really well, coming in sort of like the top three. But no one was giving me any encouragement. And then I found cigarettes and alcohol and girls, and I gave it up. So, yeah, as a kid, again, there just wasn't that drive from other people to help encourage me either. Yeah. So I loved the long distance running, but in the end, it got to the point I thought, why am I doing this? Why am I doing all this running all these miles, and no one seems to give a shit? So what's the point? So I gave it up. And if I had a regret, it'd probably be not pursuing that, really.
Okay. Any sports now that you're into or you watch?
There's no sports that I'm actively doing, but I do like my football. I definitely like football. Tennis, I like tennis as well. Rachel likes tennis, so that's handy because we do enjoy watching tennis together. Boxing, I do like boxing as well. UFC, I like. Sometimes I find that a little bit too brutal. But I'd say football is probably the biggest sport I watch, and Formula One as well. I do really enjoy Formula One.
Any team then for we'll say football and then Formula One?
Yeah, football-wise, I support Spurs. But the thing with football is I'm a little bit different from a lot of football fans. Is I do support Spurs. But I don't do all this hatred that's in football. I don't hate other clubs. Spurs and Arsenal are big rivals, but I don't hate Arsenal. Arsenal have played some tremendous football over the years, and been a fantastic team. And I admire good football is what I like. I like watching good football. I don't buy into all this hatred. I can't stand all the hatred. I just enjoy football. And if Spurs lose, I think, oh, okay. Shit, they've lost, but I don't dwell on it for days. It doesn't bother me. I just enjoy the game of football. But yeah, I support Spurs. I came from London, and where I grew up, you either supported Spurs or you supported Arsenal. The odd few supported West Ham or Crystal Palace, but I chose Spurs. But I don't buy into all this hatred in football. It's a sport. It's a game. I enjoy the whole game. It doesn't matter who's playing. If Spurs play, say, Liverpool, and Liverpool are absolute class and beat Spurs, I'm like, well, it's a good game of football. I don't buy into hatred in football. Can't stand that. But yeah, I'd say football is probably the biggest sport I follow.
Do you remember your first match you went to then?
Yeah, I do. The first football match I ever went to wasn't actually a Spurs game. It was actually a friend of mine is a QPR supporter. So the first game I ever went to was a QPR Arsenal game. And I think QPR might have won that. Can't remember. But yeah, that was the first game I ever went to was QPR Arsenal. And I loved it. And I still love it. I go to football matches every now and then with my brother-in-law, who's a West Ham fan. I quite often go with him. And I just enjoy the whole kind of atmosphere and watching football. But the whole hatred side, I've got no time for that.
There's bigger things in life than that. Your first crush. We'll go with real life, and then we'll go with a celebrity.
My first real crush.
Yeah. If you can remember.
Can't really remember my first real crush. I can't remember. I can't remember who my first real crush was.
Okay. What about celebrity then? Must be some celebrity when you're growing up that you thought was.
Celebrity crush. God, that's tough as well. It's quite a few.
Yeah. We'll go to the rank then. Top 3.
Crush. Celebrity crush. Do you know, a lot of people won't agree with this, but I do like Amanda Holden. Do have a crush on Amanda Holden. Sandra Bullock is another one that I do have a crush on. Sandra Bullock, definitely. Amanda Holden, yes. Who else? Rachel from Friends. Can't remember her real bloody name.
Jennifer Anderson.
Yeah. Jennifer Anderson. And the one that's probably my biggest celebrity crush is Liv Tyler. She's, yeah, definitely. There's something about Liv Tyler that is my ultimate celebrity crush.
Alan Mead has a question for you there. I think the answer is favorite Irish brewery.
Oh, cool, Alan. That's a good question. Do I have a favorite Irish brewery? I don't think I do. You know.
Once you don't get enough beers from different breweries, I don't think you can make a decision.
Yeah, do you know what? I don't think I've had enough from Irish brewers. What I would like to do is get over to Ireland. I definitely would like to get over to Ireland. Never been, but I would like to. But do I have a favourite Irish brewery or Irish beer? No, I don't. Years ago, back in the 90s, we used to have, and apologies if I'm wrong, but we used to have a lot of Beamish stout in the UK. And I used to love that. Even in the 90s, as a kid in their teens, I used to love Beamish stout. I used to love it. Can't find it for love nor money in the UK anymore. Then they did a Beamish red ale. But Beamish stout, I used to love. I used to love it. I did a review recently of an Irish nitro stout. Again, my memory things.
The O'Hara's, that's right.
Yep. That was pretty good, the O'Hara's. But do you know what? I'd love to go over to Ireland. I'd love to go over to Ireland and go to some proper Irish pubs and just experience whatever there is in Irish pubs. So, yeah, I don't have a favourite, Alan. But that's just because the variety isn't over here. But I'd love to go over to Ireland and spend some proper time.
I was asking you about Whiplash. Have any beers from Whiplash?
Have I had any beers from Whiplash?
Yeah.
No. Maybe I should. Alan, I will look them up. Are they Irish, I take it?
Yeah.
I will look them up.
Good beers. Next question is a bit odd. We'll move. Do you believe in ghosts?
Yes, I do actually. Whilst I'm not a religious person, but I do believe in ghosts. I do believe there is something else there. And I've had an experience with it. And I was never a believer. I was never a believer of ghosts in a million years. And yet, many years ago, I went to a caravan, weekend away in a caravan with my wife over in Suffolk. And we had a dog at the time. And I said to the wife, I'm going to take the dog out. I said to Rachel, I'm going to take the dog out for a walk. It was dark, because that's always when everyone sees ghosts, is when it's dark. And I took the dog for a walk. And outside the caravan was set on like stones, if you like, but only a sort of a bit of a perimeter around. And once you got off the stones, you're on grass. And I walked the dog. I took the dog for a walk. We went down the beach. And when I was coming back, my dog was at the time, he was a bit of a temperamental dog. He was a rescue dog. He'd had a bit of a bad life. And I felt the lead go really tight and I could hear him growling. And the hair on the back of this dog just stood up. And he was growling. We were quite close to the caravan at this point. And he was growling at something. And I couldn't see what he was growling at. And I was talking to him, saying, it's all right, it's not a problem. His name was Rolo. Saying, don't worry, Rolo, come on, let's go. And he was going berserk and barking at something. And I was just, couldn't work it out. And I couldn't see what it was. It was dark. And I was thinking, the dog's nuts. The dog is absolutely nuts. So I carried on walking, and I got to the caravan, and I was walking across the stones, and all of a sudden I felt the hairs on the back of my neck stand up, and I went cold, and I thought there's someone standing right next to me. And the dog was going absolutely mental at this point. And I looked to my left, and there was a figure of somebody. And it sounds cheesy, but it's what happened. There was someone standing in very old-fashioned type clothing going back, a couple of 100 years. And it felt so real to me. And I looked at this figure with the hairs on my neck standing up. And I said, "Hello, you all right?" And it didn't respond to me. And I was thinking, what the fuck? So I quickly legged it with a dog, jumped in the caravan and said to my wife, "There's someone outside the caravan. Give me the torch. Give me the torch." Now, to walk away from the caravan, you can hear the stones move, but there was no noise. And I ran out and I looked under the caravan, and you could see for distance. And I shone the torch everywhere and never saw anyone running, walking away. I never heard anyone walking across the stones. I looked under the caravan, I looked on top of it, and for me, and I've got no doubt in my mind, that was a ghost. And from that moment on, I thought, yeah, maybe they do exist, because if someone had run off, you would have heard them running. It would have been impossible not to hear them running. And the way my dog reacted, and the fact that I couldn't see it, and then the way my body reacted with all the hairs on my neck standing up, my body went cold. That wasn't the reaction of that just being a normal human being. And the fact I looked at it, couldn't really see a face as such, and it didn't engage with me. It just, there's no way that was a real thing. It wasn't, I don't know if there was lights playing, flickering that presented this image, but it was the way my dog reacted. And yeah, so from then on I thought, do you know what? I'm pretty sure that was a ghost. And I've believed in them ever since.
And that's your only one interaction with something.
Yeah. Yeah, it was.
And did that have any effect on you spiritually?
Say that again.
Did that have any effect on you spiritually?
Yeah, I suppose it kind of did, really. Because I thought, well, just maybe there is. I was a big non-believer before then, and I thought, well, maybe there is. And the way I looked at that, I think, is it remarkable that we're here in the first place? The fact that life exists in the way it does, you just got to think, well, if we can exist, then why can't a spirit exist? Why can't something else exist? So, yeah, it kind of did have an effect on me in a spiritual kind of way. I just think, well, out of all the planets that we can see as humans, with all the technology that we've got, that we can see so many bloody miles into space, yet we're the only thing that lives and exists. I think that can't be right. There must be something else. So, yeah, why not? Why can't spirits exist? If we exist, then why not? And I'll tell you something else, because that's a good point as well that Alan's saying. They could see a ghost in their granny's house. Both looked at each other at the same time, said, "Did you see that chilling it was?" My uncle, he claims he used to feel a ghost or a spirit, and he'd be in his bedroom and he'd say that he could smell it. They'd get the strange kind of smell that would just appear in the room, and his whole room, again, his room would go cold, and he would see a figure just move through his room. So, and it used to freak him out. And again, he was a non-believer in that type of thing, but he used to say it used to happen, on a almost regular basis. His room would go cold, figure would kind of drift through. So, but then why not? Let's be open. I think, well, the fact that we're here is impressive. So why not? Why can't these exist?
And was it the same figure for your uncle that used to pass through, or was it?
It was a female. It was a female that he used to see, and he said she never used to stop. She would just drift through and keep going, never stopped. But it was a female, and the same one every single time.
Right.
It is, Alan. It is.
Yeah. Are we alone?
Are we alone?
Yeah.
Do you know, I can't. It's a tough one. Are we alone? I can't see how we can be. You know, because space doesn't end, does it? Space can't end, because if there's nothing, there's something. Because nothing is something, if that makes any sense. Yeah. We can't be. Surely, surely we can't. And maybe there's life so many trillions of billions of miles away. We're never going to get there. But we can't. We can't be alone. We cannot be the only planet with life. It can't be. And space would just go on for infinity. It can't end. It just cannot end. So we can't be. I refuse to believe we're the only ones. I don't know what that life form might look like elsewhere, but there's no possible way we're alone. No possible way we're the only species alive. I can't believe that.
Do you believe in intelligent life then?
Yeah, possibly. Anything that's alive is intelligent. It doesn't matter what it is,
Yeah, but apart from some single cell organism which is floating around in water to an actual living thing.
Yeah, I just can't believe that that we're the only things, whether it being or intelligence being, that there has to be other things. I can't believe this planet and everything that's within our kind of solar system. I can't believe it's just us. That there has to be other life in whatever form it's in. I just can't believe we're the only ones. That just doesn't make sense to me. There must be more.
Tom Stock, if you want to come on for an interview anytime, you're welcome.
Yeah, get on to them. They are hard-hitting questions, but they're good. I like it. Absolutely, Alan. Why should we believe we're the only ones? We're not.
Yeah, so I'm guessing your answer to this is you do believe in extraterrestrial life.
Absolutely. We just cannot be the only ones. If we are, then why? But I just can't believe we are. Just can't.
Drugs.
What about?
That's the question. Drugs. We'll go with the first question, then we'll go to the second question.
Legalization of drugs. Cool. There are times when I think, should we legalize drugs? There are times when I think, maybe we should. If you think about cannabis, should we legalize that? It's legal in lots of other places. Would it stop crime? I don't think it would if we legalize drugs. Because if you just think about the way we're taxed, certainly in the UK, if you legalize cannabis, just think about how much petrol costs in the UK with the tax on that. If we legalise cannabis, the tax that would be on that would be astronomical. So there's always going to be a black market for it, just like there's a black market for alcohol and there is cigarettes, because of certainly the cost of cigarettes now. There's a massive market for the black market. So the way I look at legalising drugs is, I think, would it reduce crime? Would it change people's lives if it was legalised? And I think it's got potential to, but the UK and the UK government are greedy and they would tax the living daylights out of it, which would still create a black market, which would still then probably create even more damaging variants of drugs of what they're cut with. So that's a difficult one, really. There's parts of me that think, yeah, we should legalise some. Because then we, certainly with the likes of heroin, if we legalised that and it was available in places where you knew what was going into it, but it'd just be taxed so heavily that people would still go to a black market to it. And that would just still continue to create problems. So it's difficult, legalising of drugs, very, very difficult. And, cannabis can have a lot of health benefits, not something that I do, but it can have a lot of health benefits. Our bodies naturally have cannabinoids in them,
yeah,
and it can have a lot of health benefits. So for medical purposes, I think yes. In general purposes, I'm not sure, because there's always going to be an illegal market or a black market, which is still going to create crime. It's not going to reduce gang crime. because it'd be taxed so heavily. People are still going to go to the black market for it, which there's still going to be gang crime for. There's still going to be county lines for it. So I don't think it would necessarily reduce criminality. So it's a tough one. I think it's a really difficult one to get right, to be honest, legalizing all drugs. I think it's a very difficult thing to manage.
But I suppose your middle class, whatever class who's in college and let's say wants to smoke a joint or take CBD, something like that, and there's a government shop they can go down, they know what they're getting.
Yeah.
Are they going to, if it costs a little bit more, but, they're not going to get done by the police or they're not going to get criminal record?
Yeah, and that I can agree with. And CBD is certainly a big thing at the moment. CBD you can buy in health shops, you can buy it in chemists. The decent CBD, has minor trace of THC in it, which is legal because it's so minor. And CBD does have good benefits. I've used CBD in vapes, and it does kind of help. It can still make you feel a little bit relaxed, or certainly help with relieving pain. So CBD, there's definitely a market for, which comes from the hemp plant. So that I've got no issue. Should everyone be criminalized for having drugs on them? That sometimes bothers me. People, certainly with the likes of Class A drugs such as heroin, I know there's always the argument that someone will say, well, it's always their choice to take it. But most people that end up on heroin have probably had a horrific life event that's pushed them down that route. So should they be criminalized for being in possession of it? Sometimes I think, no, they shouldn't. We should be going after the people that are dealing it. I don't know. It's a very difficult one, that.
Okay. You're true. First car.
My first car.
Yeah.
That was mine. Not the first car I used, but the first car that was mine was a sky blue coloured Mark II Ford Fiesta. It was so basic. It was as basic as they come. Only had one wing mirror on the right hand side because that was how it was manufactured. It was basic as you like, but I loved it. And then after that, I had a Vauxhall Nova. But yeah, that was my first ever car. It was a Mark II Ford Fiesta.
What was the first car you drove then? What was the car you started to learn to drive?
I learned to drive in a Mark I Nissan Micra. And the first car that I drove when I passed my test was a Vauxhall Astra Belmont. Now, the Belmont was a saloon version of the Astra, which my mum had, and I was able to drive that. That was the first car that I drove when I passed my test.
First mobile phone?
The first mobile phone I had was made by Mitsubishi. I doubt they even make mobile phones now. That was a Mitsubishi, and to me, it was amazing. You could only have 10 phone numbers saved on it. Couldn't have any more than that. You couldn't do text messaging on it. Text messaging wasn't a thing at that time. And it used to have a pull-out aerial. You used to have to pull the aerial up on it. But yeah, that was my first phone, was a Mitsubishi mobile phone. And I loved it.
What's on your bucket list?
What's on my bucket list?
Yeah.
I said one of them earlier, my bucket list. What's on my bucket list? Do you know, I'm quite a simple type of guy. I'd like to explore the world a little bit more. I certainly want to go to Australia. That's definitely on my bucket list. I certainly like to see a few more wonders of the world are on my bucket list. But I'm quite simple, really. As long as I'm happy and I've got my family, bucket list wise, it just generally involves my family. It generally just means doing things with them, going around the world, going to a few more countries, and Australia is definitely on my bucket list. That's one of the biggest. I don't know why. I've never been to Australia, but there's something that's always been in me. I've always felt I should be in Australia. I've always felt I need to live in Australia. Now, I've discussed this with Rachel, and she won't emigrate for love nor money. But I don't know, there's just something that's been in me for many, many years that says I need to live in Australia. And that sounds odd considering I've never been there.
Yeah.
But there's just something in me that tells me that's where I belong, and I don't know why that is. So on my bucket list, it's certainly to go to Australia to see if those feelings are right. If they're right, that's going to cause a problem because Rachel won't go. But yeah, that's my biggest bucket list is going to Australia.
How long then? If you have that feeling, you have to stay more than 2 weeks. You have to stay 3-4 weeks, I'd say, would you?
I think if you're going to go to Australia, really, you've got to go for at least 3 weeks just because of the travelling time. But my biggest fear of that is if I go there and those inner feelings I've got become really apparent. And I think that would be quite difficult. I don't know why I've got it. I don't know why I've got that feeling, but I've had it for years. And I mean years, that I just feel that's where I'm supposed to be. And I don't know what that's all about. I've got no idea, but I've had it for years, that feeling. So if we go and that feeling proves right, it's going to cause a problem.
What's your greatest weakness?
My greatest weakness. I think one of my greatest weaknesses has been, which I have tamed, is saying yes. Is saying yes to people when I probably shouldn't. And what I mean by that is when people say to me, "Can you help me out with something?" And I say, "Yeah, no problem." But what I've also got other things on the time that I should be concentrating on to do with myself, but I'd rather go and kind of help them. And then what comes with that is you become known as a yes man. Is if you need anything, go and see Chris. Chris will help you out. And that in itself starts to become a burden in the end because you've got so many people that are coming to you and all they're actually doing is just passing on a stress that they don't want. And they pass it on to you. So that, and then you own it because I say, yeah, I'll deal with that for you. And then you own it and you're owning their stress and they go away a little bit happier. And you think, hang on a minute, they've gone away happy and now I'm owning that. So that was my biggest weakness. But I'd say over the last sort of 3 to 4 years, I've curbed that and I don't do as much for people as I used to. I still help people, but there does come a point where I go, actually, do you know what? I can't do that now. I've got my own stuff to deal with and I'll deal with my own stuff and then I might go back to them. But that was definitely my biggest weakness, was always being a yes man.
Do you have any talent would you consider absolutely useless?
A talent that I consider useless?
Yeah.
Do I have a talent that I consider useless? No, I actually don't. Do I have a talent that I consider useless? I don't think I do, Thomas.
Okay.
I don't think I do. No.
What's your absolutely dream job? Although you love your job you're in, if kids are watching, if you could, have any dream job?
My dream job?
Yeah, Premier League footballer, sitting on a bench, getting $500,000 a week.
Cool, wouldn't that be amazing? I'd sit on a bench for £500,000 a week. Now, my dream job would be a presenter on Top Gear. That would be my dream job. Getting paid to drive the most exotic cars, going around the world doing the most exotic challenges in cars. That's my dream job, being a Top Gear presenter.
Okay, then what would be your top 3 cars if you get to do your lap around their track?
Top 3 cars. Car. I love cars. I'm a big car man. I love cars. From a kid, certainly from growing up in the 80s, Porsche were always my favourites. The 911 Turbo. I'd have to own one. I'd have to go and buy a 911 Turbo. I also absolutely adore the Lamborghini Aventador. I I think that is just one of the most stunning looking cars ever made. Third car would probably be God, the bloody name of it. Porsche 911, Lamborghini Aventador, and the original Zonda. Lewis Hamilton's just sold his original Zonda. Just an absolute gorgeous car. Ferrari F40 would probably appear as well. But if 3 cars that I could go out and buy right now if I had the money, I'd have to go and have a 911 Turbo just because of how influential that was in my youth. The Lamborghini Aventador because it's just a sexy beast, and the original Zonda. Well, I'd go and buy right now if I could.
Some nice cars. What was the last lie you told?
I don't tell lies. Probably when I was a kid. Probably.
There's something you little white lie. You sent that email and you didn't send it, or you did the washing but you didn't, or something to your wife, or you picked up something.
Yeah, if you go on that, yeah, you're right. I probably have. I'd probably say it probably is my wife asking me to do a job and I've told her I've done it and I haven't. I'd probably say that's every man does it. Yeah, I'd probably say that's what it is. I can guarantee it'd probably be that. Actually, Thomas, you're right. It would be probably telling my wife a lie about a job that she asked me to do and I said I'd done it and I hadn't. I'd agree with that one. I can't remember which one it was because we probably all do it so often. That's a fair point.
Okay, last thing you Googled.
The last thing I Googled, let me I'll just click on my Google and that would tell me. Well, the last thing I Googled was doing this live with you, was trying to work out the name of that song, which was Men at Work, Down Under, was the last thing I Googled. We spoke about that about 45 minutes ago. Before that, it was how to add tags to your YouTube. How to add tags to a YouTube live stream was the last thing I Googled.
Okay. Last thing you purchased online, if you purchased something online.
The last thing I purchased online would have been a beer order from Trembling Madness.
Okay. Which beers, if you can remember? While I'm getting the next question.
Oh my God. There was all sorts. I buy such a variety. I can't remember exactly. So I could go and get the YouTube order for.
No, it's okay. If you're standing in front of your 16-year-old self, what advice would you give him?
If I was standing in front of my 16-year-old self, I would say the best advice I would give myself is have more confidence and believe in yourself. Believe in yourself, have more confidence, and don't listen to the doubters, is what I would say to my 16-year-old self.
Okay. How would friends describe you in 3 words?
Honest, genuine, caring.
Okay. Hardest goodbye you ever had to. 1 second. How can I write? Yeah.
Hardest goodbye?
Yeah.
What was your hardest goodbye in life? Hardest goodbye. That's a difficult one. Hardest goodbye. I said I'll answer every one of your questions, and I will. I haven't spoken to my mother for about 8 years. That was probably the hardest goodbye. Was making that decision. That was my hardest by far.
Okay. Thanks for that. If you were stranded on a desert island, who would you want to be stranded with, and what 3 items would you bring?
Stranded on a desert island, who would I be with? It's easy. If I had to have one, obviously my kids and my wife. It's going to be my wife because she just knows how I work. She just knows how to deal with everything that comes with me. So it would be my wife. I think throughout the stream, it's fairly obvious how much I love my wife. And what 3 items would I take with you on a deserted island?
By the way, you're off the west coast of Ireland, so it's not tropical. It's pretty wet and miserable.
I would take my bell tent. I love my bell tent. And the second item would be my log burner that goes in the bell tent, so we can keep warm in the bell tent when the weather's horrendous. So it'd be the bell tent, the log burner, and copious amounts of logs to go with the log burner.
Okay. If money was no object, what would you do all day? And remember, you only have 1 day to do this, so you can't.
So if money was no object for 1 day.
Yeah, you have unlimited trillions. You can do anything.
But it's just for 1 day.
Yeah.
I would spend the whole day driving around an amazing circuit in Belgium called the Spa-Francorchamps circuit all day in the most exotic cars on the planet. I would spend my whole day ragging it around that race circuit all day long.
Okay, so you wouldn't try to end world homelessness?
No, no, I wouldn't. I think I've got unlimited money for 1 day, because to change things like world homelessness, change everything else like that, it's going to take more than 1 day. You're never going to achieve that in 1 day.
Yeah,
so
but if you set up a foundation that builds affordable social housing that is not driven by money.
I'll tell you what I'll do then, Thomas. I would carry on driving around Spa-Francorchamps circuit in the most exotic cars with lots of people on a Teams meeting and on my mobile phone, putting pay to all those issues at the same time whilst driving a fast car.
Okay.
Sometimes we have to be selfish.
No problem. I think you answered favorite movie. A clean or messy person?
Let's go with the first one. What's your favorite movie? Probably my favorite movie that I've probably watched the most is the first Bad Boys. That's with Will Smith and what's his name? Lawrence. Yeah, Martin Lawrence. Probably my favorite movie of all time. Am I a clean or messy person? Generally clean. I like. My favourite room in the house is the kitchen, and I love my kitchen to be spotlessly clean. So I would go with clean.
Okay. Introvert or extrovert?
Say that again.
Introvert
or extrovert? Is in me. Am I an introvert or an extrovert? Yeah. I'd probably go more towards introvert rather than extrovert. Whilst I put myself out there on YouTube, which some people might say is a bit extrovert, I'm more of an introvert. Certainly when it comes to social functions, parties, that sort of thing, I'm not the voice of the crowd. I'll chip in and I'll come up with funnies and I'll get involved, but I won't look to lead in those types of environments. So I would say more introvert.
Okay. I'm a true introvert. Craziest thing you've done for love?
Craziest thing I've done in the name of love? Craziest thing? I don't think I've necessarily done anything crazy. I sometimes like to think I can be quite romantic.
Okay.
I've taken my wife, I'd say that it's quite romantic. I've taken her to the theatre in London, then taken her on to a Michelin-starred restaurant, which is quite romantic. But I have to save up for that. I'm not saying I'm flush with money. I'll save up and do things like that to treat my wife. So I wouldn't say I've done anything crazy. Say I can do romantic, but I wouldn't out there say anything particularly crazy.
Okay. If you had a warning label, what would it be?
If I had a, that's an amazing question. That if I had a warning label, what would be my biggest weakness? What warning label? I can be quite blunt with some people. I can be honest, and sometimes honesty is a weakness. And my whole life is all about being honest. That some people don't like honesty. Some people get quite offended by honesty. So I would put that warning label on myself. I'd say, if you're asking me for your opinion, my warning label is, I will be honest with you. If you don't like honesty, then don't ask me. That would be my warning label.
Okay.
My biggest fear is, it's going to sound a bit nasty. My biggest fear is dying in a house fire. It is my biggest fear. I think dying in a fire has probably got to be the most horrendous ways to go. That's my biggest fear.
The smoke kills you before anything else, I think, anyhow.
Yeah,
so.
absolutely.
If you had to live in another time period, what time period would you live in? I know it's weird, but...
No, that's interesting, isn't it? Live in another time period. I'd love to have had a look at the 60s. 60s was the decade of love, wasn't it? So I would love to go and have a look at the 60s. If I could go back in time or live my time. Yeah, being alive in my teens in the 60s, I think would be an interesting time to go and have a look at.
And if you could speak another foreign language, what would it be?
I'd like to be fluent in Spanish. I've had a few holidays in Spain, which I've enjoyed, and I always try and make the effort. I think if you're going to another country that's not English speaking, you should make the effort. And I'm just going to base that on the amount of times I've been to Spain. I'd like to be fluent in Spanish.
If you could pick up a new skill instantly, what would it be?
Speaking Spanish.
Yeah, but another skill, like the ability to speak any language in the world, like, or I don't know, electrician or carpentry or whatever.
If I could pick up, I'll tell you what, playing an instrument, I'd love to be able to play the guitar. That'd be a nice skill to have. Playing the guitar.
Electric or acoustic?
Both. If you can play the acoustic, you should be able to play the electric, I think.
Favorite pizza topping?
Chilies. Chilies on every, if I have pizza, it's got to have chilies on it. Every pizza I have's got to have chili on it.
Okay. Favorite restaurant or favorite type of restaurant? So Indian, I don't know, fish and chips or whatever. What kind of restaurant do you go to? More fast food. If
I'd probably go with Indian. I'd say it's probably my most sort of go-to is Indian restaurant.
First person on your hit list.
First person on my hit list. I mean, we talking hit list as in taking them out hit list.
Yeah, definitely. Go on.
Cool. In this day and age. Cool. My God. First person on my hit list. I would say the people that would be on my hit list, if I could go around and pop them, would be the people that get the drug dealers that kids to do their running for them, the people that pick on the most vulnerable of kids and entice them into their world to run their drugs for them and stuff like that would definitely be on my hit list.
Okay. Question. There you go. Pick a song describes.
That is an amazing question. Pick a theme song to describe where your life is at right now. What song would you choose? Fuck. core. The song describing where my life is right now. Core. That's tough. That's difficult.
Okay.
One of my most favourite songs of all time goes back to the 80s, which was Duran Duran Wild Boys. That I love. That always gets me going. It always drives me forward. But where right now, Eye of the Tiger is another song that always drives me. A bit cheesy from Rocky, and that's all the songs itself is about fighting. It's about carrying on. And I felt a lot of my life, certainly over the last sort of 10 years, has always been about fighting to carry on because of the health issues I've had. So any kind of song that's like that is empowering you to feel that you can carry on, I'd go with.
Okay, I think that's pretty good. Have you broken any boards? Yes,
I have. When I was about 11, I was on a climbing frame. And it was really high up. These were back in the 80s when there was kind of no limits or safety and no safety flooring with climbing frames. And I was at the very top of this very strange climbing frame that just went straight up. I was right at the top of it, probably about 2 stories up really in height. And it was set in like tarmac, and the tarmac at the bottom was loose. So this climbing frame used to wobble. And my friend, we were picking teams for a game, and my friend picked me for his game. And I was so excited that he'd picked me that I went to kind of move off it or climb down it, and it wobbled. And I fell forward and it caught my foot, and I went down head first. And I put my arm over my head, which was a good thing because I came down head first and just smashed this arm into the concrete. My elbow went up here, and both of these bones in my arm they weren't just fractured, they completely snapped apart. And on the x-rays, they were kind of like that far apart from where they should be. So yeah, both bones in there. My elbow went up here, and both bones in here completely snapped in half. Absolutely like you'd broken a stick.
The most illegal thing you've ever done? And I'll be back in a minute. You can answer the question.
The most illegal thing I've ever done.
You can admit to.
Probably in my teens, probably smoking cannabis. Probably about the most illegal thing I've ever done. That probably is the most illegal thing I've ever done. Not very exciting, really, is it? Not exciting at all, really. What I can't see is how many people are still in here. We've been going for over 2 hours. Is anybody still in? Wow, Irish craft beer guys. I can't tap on your comment though, can I? Can I tap on your comment? No, I can't. Thomas is pulling them out the bag tonight, Alan. Absolutely right. I'm going to do the same, Thomas. I'm just going to nip to the loo.
Okay, no problem. What is he saying about me? Pull them out of the bag. I have no bag. Yeah, I'm not putting any yolks out of any bags. Yeah, so thanks for anyone who's watched, anyone who has continued to watch. 2 hours and 10 minutes or 8 minutes we are going. Chris has been amazing tonight, really honest, really brilliant. Yeah, let's get the next question lined up. Yeah, sorry I have to do this. I have to go to Word and try to get the next question. They're the same questions. I haven't changed them. Slightly changed them, tweaked them. Oh yeah, bot. We've got a bot in. Let's put them in timeout. Thank you, Alan. Really appreciate it.
I'm back.
No problem. Next question. If you could eat one meal for the rest of your life, what would it be?
Fillet steak. Love fillet steak. Fillet steak with Stilton cheese melted across the top. It's just heaven for me. Absolute heaven.
What way do you take your steak?
Medium rare, sometimes rare, but most of the time medium rare.
Yeah. If you could share a meal with 4 individuals who are dead, who would it be? We'll go with celebrity if you want.
If you could share a meal with 4 individuals.
We'll go with dead first.
Dead. Who would I go with dead?
Winston Churchill, English, I don't know what that sounds.
Winston Churchill, I would.
Okay.
Definitely.
Hitler?
Hitler?
Yeah.
Do you know what? That wouldn't be a bad shout, actually. I think he'd be quite an interesting person to speak to. Don't get me wrong, I don't agree with what he did, but he'd be an interesting person to speak to. I'll tell you who it is. Australian guy. They used to run Australia Zoo, Steve Irwin. Love to have dinner with him. So Steve Irwin, Winston Churchill, Hitler I find amusing. So I find that so amusing that I would never have thought about it until you said it. But why not? That could be quite interesting. And Henry VIII. Henry VIII I'd quite like to have dinner with. You know, the wives he had, the wives he killed. I'd just love to kind of get into that. His psyche and philosophy as to why would be quite interesting.
Yeah. What would you talk about then? What's the first topic you'd bring up?
If I was talking to, let's stick with Hitler then. If I was talking to Hitler, I'd want to get into more of his youth. I'd want to get into his psyche as to what made him go down that route that he went down, to try and kind of find out why he thought that he had the thoughts he did of people. Winston Churchill, I'd be interested to talk to him about his whiskey addiction, because that man used to have whiskey for breakfast. And I'd also like to talk to him about, you know, the amount of people that opposed him when he became prime minister for the second time, when he was, you know, declaring war, getting involved in World War II, and a lot of people were telling him that it was the wrong move and that he should be having peace talks with the likes of Hitler, and yet he stuck to his guns. And I'd like to talk to him about that, so what drove him to stick to that, which was ultimately the right decision. Steve Irwin is just an absolute legend of a guy. His passion for animals and his whole excitement, I think, would just rub off on people. And Henry VIII, I'd just love to know how he thought and how he thought about life and how he had so many wives and why he had to kill them all, or kill so many. And that I'd find quite interesting.
Okay. If you're a superhero, what superpowers do you have?
It's a good question, that, because we discussed that a lot in our house, because we're big fans of the Marvel films in this household. And for me, it's a toss-up between being invisible or being able to fly. They're the two that I would go with. But if I had to pick one out of the two, fly. Flying would be my superpower. Just being able to when you're in a situation, you think, I'm a bit fed up with this. I'm a bit fed up with life. I'm just going to go for a fly. I'm just going to go and fly around, fly somewhere else in the world and chill out for a little while and then fly back. Flying would be my ultimate.
Okay. What is knowledge?
What is knowledge?
Yeah.
Knowledge, that can come in many forms. I think knowledge for me, the biggest thing about knowledge for me is knowledge is acceptance. Knowledge is accepting that we're not all the same. We are all different. We all have different ways, different traits, just different We're all just different. Okay, we might be male, we might be female, but we're still all different. And knowledge for me is accepting that we're all different. And we can all think different things. We can all have different opinions, and we don't need to fight over it. We don't need to have war over it. That's what knowledge is for me, is accepting that everybody's different. Everybody has different values and different beliefs and different feelings. And knowledge is getting on with that, and everybody getting on. That's knowledge for me. If we're not doing that, which most of this bloody world doesn't, that's not knowledge. It's ignorance. It's other things. Knowledge is acceptance. Accepting everybody's different. Accepting that there's many different faiths that people have, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. You know, acceptance is that people want to declare themselves as whatever they want to be. Acceptance and knowledge is people can be gay, lesbian, have disabilities, have illnesses. That's knowledge. Is accepting that. That's knowledge for me.
Okay. Next one is, what is intelligence?
Intelligence is very similar to what is knowledge. Intelligence is, again, it's the same thing. It's accepting that we're all different. That's intelligence. That's absolute. In fact, that's even more so, more than knowledge is intelligence, is accepting everybody is different. Everybody has their own things. Everybody has their own ways. That's intelligence. That's probably even more powerful than knowledge, that is. Do I have any phobias? Do I have any phobias? No, I don't particularly have any phobias. No, I don't. I don't really have any phobias as such. There's things that I don't like, but there's nothing that I have any real phobias of. Nothing that really freaks me out. It's a good question, that, Super Fat Bats. But no real phobias. Best beer ever tasted of all time. Tough question. I've reviewed some cracking beers over the last year. Some really cracking beers. But there's one beer that still stands out for me. It's one of the Schenkerla smoke beers. If you go on my channel, Alan, and scroll back quite a way, there's a Schenkerla beer, and the thumbnail says this is the best beer I've ever had. It is one of the Schenkerla smoked lagers out of Germany. It was just outstanding. So yeah, if you go on my channel, Alan, just keep scrolling. You'll see the thumbnail. Probably the best beer I've ever had. I think it says on the thumbnail.
Would you go to space? If you do, you couldn't go back to Earth.
Okay, space, when you could never come back. No. I'd love to go into space. Would absolutely love to go into space. I think that'd be an amazing thing. But if I can never come back, no. I couldn't. No. Not unless I knew what I was going to was better. No, I couldn't. Yeah, check it out, Alan.
Okay, last questions. Let's get this lined up. If you would, what animal would you be?
Considering my superpower would be to fly, it'd be a golden eagle. I'd love a golden eagle, just soaring above the earth, just soaring up there in the clouds and the sky, looking down at everything. Yeah, golden eagle, without a doubt.
Okay, I think I've kept you long enough. We're coming up on 2 hours 20.
Wow.
I've asked you lots of questions and you've been truly honest. So I'd like to say thank you to all the people in the comments first for making all the comments. Everyone who's watched, liked, shared, disliked, reported, all the bots in the chat, thank you as well. Yeah, and thanks especially to Chris for coming on and answering all these questions. Really enjoyed, really good. Yeah,
I've loved
if you
it.
haven't followed Chris, go follow him. His Instagram account should be in the description then, so go give him a follow on his Instagram as well, and his YouTube. And make sure to hit the bell on his YouTube channel so you get notified of all his brilliant content.
Thank you very much for having me, Thomas. I appreciate it. I can't believe we've done 2 hours 20. That's gone so fast, and I've loved your questions. Your questions have been fantastic, and I've hoped I've managed to answer every single one as best I can, but I'll always be honest, and that's what life's about. So thank you very much for having me. And thank you for the patience, Thomas, of waiting for me.
No problem. It was well worth the wait. Brilliant guest. And yeah, I think we'll say goodbye to everyone.
Absolutely. Thank you very much.
See you next time, everyone.
Take care.